Hey y'all, it's Megan. If you're returning to my channel, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome aboard. So today is another one of my history and trivia videos. Today I am focusing on everyone's favorite giant golf ball, the Spaceship Earth attraction at EPCOT. So if y'all follow me on Instagram, you already know that I'm obsessed with Spaceship Earth. I do Spaceship Earth Sunday most weeks. I have way too many pictures. I think I have more pictures of Spaceship Earth than I do of Cinderella's castle. Like, it's a problem. So I've definitely wanted to talk about this one. I've been looking at doing the research on it for a while, so I have finally gotten that together. So let's start off with just some basic fast facts about Spaceship Earth. So it opened with EPCOT on October 1st in 1982. So that was opening day attraction for EPCOT. It's an omni-mover attraction, which means that it's constantly moving. I mean, pretty obvious right there. So the vehicles are just on a conveyor that consistently move unless they need to stop. They can pause to allow people who need a little bit extra time to transfer from an ECV or a wheelchair or something like that. If people need a little bit of extra time, they can't stop them. But for the most part, it just kind of continuously moves through the ride track. And so that makes it move very quickly. The lines are never really long, even though the attraction does run about 15 minutes. So you know that you're gonna be getting a good hot minute of air conditioning when you go and get on Spaceship Earth. It's because it runs for a full 15 minutes. If I look down, sorry, it's because I want to make sure that I'm getting all of these zeros in the right spot. But the actual attraction is 109,000 square feet, or 2,350,000 cubic feet. So like the volume is the cubic feet, obviously, which is 15,520,000 pounds. That's a big golf ball. Geometrically, how the sphere should work out based on the diameter of 165 feet. I think it's 165. 11,520 of those little isosceles triangles. However, because there are doors, there are supports, there are things that take up some of the surface area of the dome, there are actually only 11,324 tiles that make up the exterior shell of Spaceship Earth. Spaceship Earth, that term referring to the planet Earth, came from Buckminster Fuller. He was an architect, an inventor, an author. He was kind of an everything, but he was a futurist. And so that kind of spacey, futuristic vibe, he coined the phrase Spaceship Earth. So that was where the phrase came from, and he was also the inventor, the designer, whatever, of the geodesic dome. Another famous name that you may recognize that helped out with the creation of Spaceship Earth is Ray Bradbury. Yeah, that one. He was actually involved in the design of the structure, kind of with Buckminster Fuller. He helped design the structure, and he also helped with the original storyline. So the story, the basis, the entire reason why Spaceship Earth is a thing, it follows the history from like 40,000 years, I think is what it's supposed to be, is 40,000 years of history through how communication and technology have developed. So it's the communication of the human species from the beginning all the way up to today. So for the most part, Spaceship Earth remained unchanged. There are a few scenes and things that have been added, but the biggest modification that was made from the time it opened to today is there have been different narrators. So in 1982 to 1986, when it opened up through 1986, Vic Perrin was the narrator, and he was the narrator for The Outer Limits. He also did some voice work for Star Trek and stuff like that. But he was the narrator for the first 4 years, and then in 1986, it transitioned to pretty much everyone from the 80s favorite voice, which was Walter Cronkite. And you know him from CBS News, obviously. He's Walter Cronkite. I mean, he was the narrator from 86 up to 94. And in 94, my 90s child is so happy. He wasn't everyone's favorite, but Jeremy Irons, yes, the voice of Scar, he was the narrator of Spaceship Earth, which if you haven't ever been on that iteration of it, he was there from 1994 to 2007. So go find that, watch that video somewhere, because it's weird to hear Scar talking about technologies. I don't know, it's weird for my 90s child heart. So he was up until 2007, and then in the beginning months of 2008 is when it reopened after its refurb, and that was when Dame Judi Dench was the narrator, and she has gone up through today. They were scheduled to do a refurb where it was speculated that there was going to be some new narrator and some new scenes and all that kind of stuff, but because of everything hitting the fan last year, that has been like know if it's canceled, postponed, indefinitely. So we do still have Dame Judi Dench, which you know her as M from the James Bond films. That's who she is. So this is going to be the bulk of what I'm going to talk about here, is the actual scenes that you're going to go through and what they kind of mean in terms of the story that you're being told as you go through the attraction. You start off with the giant projections of the cave people that are just hunting. There's no spoken or written language. There's no real communication happening. They're just like hunter-gatherer kind of situation, and they show us that, and then from there we move into where humans start developing communication. They have the cave paintings, which is meant to represent the first written communication forms. The only problem with that is when these nomadic peoples move, the writings stay put. You can't carry a cave with you. So the next thing that you go into is the Egyptians, where you see that they have developed papyrus and hieroglyphics. So not only are they developing their own form of written communication, they're putting it on paper. So they've developed a way for us to now write things down and take them with us. So there's the mobile aspect of communication. And then we get to thank the Phoenicians, because the Phoenician traders are traveling all over the world, and they're like, you don't speak this and you don't speak that, and no one can communicate with anyone else. No one is writing with the same symbols, even, never mind the same language. So then they developed the actual alphabet, and there's where we get to thank the Phoenicians for making our ABCs so easy to learn. And I liked to write and talk and stuff like that, but for my husband, the most important form of communication, he is a statistician, so math, that's the next section that you go into, is mathematics, and that is showing the beginnings of how we get from these basic numbers to, you know, you're going to see in the future where we get to technology, and this is the basis of that. So they want to make sure that they kind of lay a foundation. So, you know, communication is not just vocal, it's not just written, it's also going to eventually be technological, and the basis of that is mathematics. So that's where they show us the Greek mathematicians who are, you know, calculating and formulating and doing all of the good numbery stuff. I'm going to stick with the Phoenicians and the letters. When you think of Greeks, you also think of Romans, and those kind of one right after the other. So you're seeing the Romans traveling on their network of roads, which is how the world basically became connected. The Romans created this system, this World Wide Web, as the narrator says, of roads that then connect physically these places together so that they can communicate with one another. And there's where we start seeing news travel. You don't think of infrastructure being that important to communication, but it really was the first way that people could travel from place to place without having to, you know, get in a boat and sail somewhere else. You know, you can have just a road from here to there, and you can transport news from point A to point B a lot more easily than if you're having to over the hill and dale and do all of this off-road and business in your chariots. The next scene is one of everyone's favorites, burning of the library at Alexandria. That's where we see that all of this progress we've made up till now, it can be destroyed. The scrolls at the library at Alexandria were destroyed. We lost so many texts, so much of the writings that we had been working so hard through history and cultures to build up, and they were just wiped out. But the next scene shows that you had ye old iCloud system. Some of our Jewish and Islamic scholars were keeping a backup system. They had preserved some of the texts. They had written them out. They had recorded stuff over, and so, you know, we had copies of things. We didn't lose them forever. A lot of things were lost forever, but not everything. So you start to see the importance of keeping a record of things and keeping a backup. Going along with the record keeping kind of bridges into the next scene, and that is the monks who were hand writing biblical texts. Just copy paste, but copying and pasting was a lot of wrist cramping. I bet they had carpal tunnel like nobody's business. So they just were writing out those biblical texts, and that was one of the big steps towards getting copies of things and having multiples of these texts without having just like one master copy that we need to like protect at all costs. And of course, our friend Gutenberg made this a whole heck of a lot easier. The monks' wrists thank him immensely because he developed the printing press. So now, not only can we make copies of things, we can do it fast, we can do it easily, we can transmit them You know, we can print it and just send it off. You know, we can go on those roads. We can go all of these places with the texts that are easily reproduced. And we have so much focus on the actual written texts and the spoken language that we've developed. Communication also can be through art. Things that were prevalent you can see in art. You don't have to just read about it. You can see it in art, in paintings, in sculpture, in music with our Luke friend over in the corner there. You can see through art how people communicate. And I mean, if you think about the music that we have today, that's a form of communication, right? Like people dance, people sing, people play instruments, and that's communication. So the Renaissance was really like the Mac Daddy of all time, showing us that you don't have to just speak or write to communicate. You can do it in a multitude of different ways. After the Renaissance, we kind of skip ahead to post-Civil War America and the Industrial Revolution. So that's when the next like major jump happens, and you start seeing the loud, fast steam presses, the extra. You're seeing newspapers mass-produced. You're seeing in the later sections of the Industrial Revolution, the early 20th century, you're seeing movies, radio, telephone, telegraph, television comes about in the later part of the 20th century part. So if this is the ride, we go to about here, and all of this is like the past like 39,000 years. And then from here is just a few hundred years. So we really progress very, very quickly after the Civil War era. So you can definitely see that they cram a lot into that one time frame, and that kind of just shows you exactly how much was happening. The 20th century, you see the moon landing, you see televisions being brought into the home, and then we go to computers. And computers are kind of where we're at today. They just keep getting more and more advanced, and I'm not even sure how you can illustrate how advanced computers have gotten. Okay, so those are the scenes and what they mean. Now that we've got that out of the way, I can talk about some of the things that have changed and some of the fun facts about the attraction. So the ride scenes, all the beginning ones were pretty much the same from the very beginning. But in 1994, you know, not everyone, a lot of people had at that point gotten a home computer. So they switched it to, there was two like rooms, a little boy and a little girl, and they were communicating online. So we were seeing online communication between two people, like instantaneous, just from their computers. And they replaced that in the 2007 refurb. Also in the 1994 refurb, they changed the ending. So there used to be more animatronics after the 20th century stuff, after the computer age. Then you would go into like the space station, and you would be amongst the astronauts looking down onto our spaceship Earth. They changed that in 94. They took that out, and the actual, like the real ending, you know, where you're going around backwards, there used to be monitors off to the sides that would show stuff. I don't even know what it was, but they would show things on these monitors as you progressed back to the beginning of the ride, and they took those out and turned it into just like blinking, twinkly lights that were supposed to represent like data chains and stuff for the technology, the computer stuff. So that was replaced in 94, and then obviously they took that out in 2007, and we have the even more lights that I think are supposed to be spacey. I don't think it's supposed to be computer stuff. I think it's supposed to be spacey, right? But they took all of the monitors out, and they put the single monitor into the actual ride vehicle where you get to pick your own adventure kind of thing. So that came in 2007. One other big change that happened to the exterior of the attraction, not the interior. In late 1999, they added a Mickey hand with a wand to the outside of the attraction, and it had 2000 written out. They took that out in 2001 and just had it say EPCOT, and that was there until 2007 when they got rid of all of the exterior accoutrement and just made it, you know, just their normal golf ball. But that was on there for several years. People loved it, people hated it. I didn't really go during the time frame that it was there, so I don't really have a strong opinion, but if you do, let me know what it is down below. One of the fun facts that I'm going to just briefly gloss over, because I did talk about it in one of my previous history and trivia videos, is all of the presidents that you can see in Spaceship Earth. So I've mentioned before that animatronics get reused. It's just efficient, I guess. So Imagineers do reuse some animatronics, and I'm going to, hopefully editing Meaghan has put together a side-by-side comparison of the Hall of Presidents president and the Spaceship Earth president, so you can see the two animatronics side by side. Hopefully I've done that for you. I'm going to run through them really quickly because I have mentioned them before, but just for fun while we're here. President Dwight D. Eisenhower as the musician, Franklin Pierce as the scholar, John Tyler as a Turkish scholar, John Adams is the monk who is transcribing, not the one who's asleep, he's actually doing his work. Zachary Taylor is the centurion. Teddy Roosevelt is the senator. You can't really prove it, but according to the lists, that is true. William Taft is the Egyptian priest. Does anyone else think he looks like John Goodwin? Is it just me? Andrew Jackson is the printer who's working on the printing press back there behind Gutenberg. He's looking like he's working real hard. And James Buchanan is Gutenberg himself. So those are the presidents who are visible in Spaceship Earth. So some of the other fun things about Spaceship Earth, let's think about that computer garage, okay? When they're talking about getting the personal home computer into everyone's home. Who is that supposed to be? It seems like what they were trying to do was combine the Steves. So from Apple, you have Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs. And they have the hair and stuff of Steve Jobs and kind of the build of Steve Wozniak. So the idea, I think, is that that's not supposed to be any one individual, but it's kind of a combination of the two main minds that did come up with the personal computer. So one fun thing that everyone seems to know about Spaceship Earth is that when you go through the burning of Alexandria, it smells hot. It smells like fire. Some people love it, some people hate it. My mom hates it. She's terrified of fire, so anything that smells remotely like fire, she is like, nope, it's a no from me. But what people may not notice, and I'm not entirely sure I've noticed it, but supposedly in Egypt, the section in Egypt when you're first beginning, the temperature's different. It's supposed to be hotter in there. You're supposed to feel like you were in the deserts around the Nile River, and so you would feel hotter. So I don't know 100% if that's still true, if it has been true in the past. I haven't ridden it recently enough to tell you that I have tested that out, but if you ride it and you notice that there's a little bit of a temperature shift in Egypt, let me know. My last fun fact pertains to if Spaceship Earth was actually a golf ball, because why not? So I mentioned that the diameter is 165 feet. Based on that diameter of 165 feet, in order to proportionally be a person able to actually like hit that golf ball, you'd have to be 1.2 miles tall. And as someone who has had difficulty reaching 5 feet, I don't think I'm going to be hitting that ball anytime soon. Also, proportionally, the hole that you'd be hitting it towards would need to be 417 feet in diameter just to make it in. That would be to scale how big that little hole would need to be. And the fairway that you're like driving, is that the correct golf terms? I don't sport. The length of the fairway would need to be 134 miles, which is roughly the width of Florida. So that'd be one heck of a big golf game. So that is it. Those are the history and fun facts about Spaceship Earth. Is this like a must ride for y'all? Because I have to do Spaceship Earth every time I'm there. I love it. I don't know why. It's not like the most thrilling attraction out there, but I really do enjoy it. And I like Judi Dench's narration. It's the only one I really have ever personally experienced, so that's probably why. But if you have a different preference, let me know that down below. And also let me know if you have any other suggestions. I've got a couple from last week's video that I made a note of, but if you have any other suggestions for videos that you'd like to see the history and trivia of a movie or an attraction, let me know those down below too. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye y'all.